I gotta tell you, this is a super exciting session, and unlike any other one that I've done, because I don't know if I'm talking to an architect or to a doctor or both, a little bit of both.
I'm not a doctor. I don't have a doctorate degree. I am an architect with a neuroscience for architecture education as
And
well.
that's very unique. That's very unique. You are an architect and you are a neuroarchitect, not just any architect. You have unique expertise in neuroscience that distinguishes you from any other guests that I've spoken to so far, in neuroscience for architecture in particular. And you have a really established pioneering work in that field in essence. As a matter of fact, I think you're the only one in the United States today who's capable of merging or pretty much designing and working from a neuroscience or architecture perspective or dynamic. Is that correct?
I would refine that by saying that I am the only licensed architect with the certificate and the degree from the New School of Architecture. There is also another university in Italy that provides that degree and certificate right now, but I don't know of any licensed architects in the United States who have achieved that yet.
And you pursued that degree locally here in the United States?
I did. It was a program with the New School of Architecture out of San Diego with combination faculty from the Salk Institute. And that program was in 2016, 2017, when I traveled down to San Diego twice a week for seminars and classes. And the sessions were taught by a professor of architecture as well as a neuroscientist from Salk Institute. A lot of discussions, a lot of research results that were given to us by the neuroscientists. This was a pioneer program. That program started and unfortunately ended when the pandemic hit because that's not a program that you can learn online. You have to be part of the discussion. It was a graduate program, but I already had a graduate degree, so I was able to go through the certificate program and fulfill the requirements.
You're very accomplished and visionary. Your architectural firm, FKB, offers a proprietary business model, which is revolved around creating dynamic buildings in space using neurological research. This is super exciting, to be honest. I can't claim that I know much about it, but I mean, reading about it and checking your website and your work is very exciting, and it kind of turns on some bulbs in my head. Talk to us a little bit more about neuroarchitecture in general, and where did it stem from? Where did it start from?
Absolutely. The whole idea is to get the wheels rolling and to get people to think about the brain. We have, as architects and designers, always designed for the human body. How do we move through space? How do we connect these spaces? Because a human body is moving through it. Now we know more about the brain, and we're adding one more layer to our knowledge and one more layer into our design process. My interest in this came about when I attended an AIA conference in San Diego back in 2003, I believe it was. And Fred Cage, who's also known as Rusty Cage, actually, he is known as Rusty Cage, a neuroscientist from Salk Institute, was the keynote speaker. And at that meeting, he presented his paper that talked about the fact that we as adults continue to create new brain cells. Before Rusty Cage's studies and research, it was believed that we were born with all of our brain cells. And as we got older, we lost them, and that was it. They die, and we just get older. Well, he and his team at Salk Institute proved that that is not correct, that we do continue to create new brain cells. And he said architecture has a lot to do with that, can help with that. And at that point, and we're talking about 20 years ago, this light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, there it is. That we can actually help the brain and create new brain cells. That's an incredible power that we can have. Now, years went on, decades went on. There was not much talk about it because, as we know, neuroscience is fairly new. The research that they've done because of the fMRIs has enabled, in the last couple of decades, the neuroscientists to find more about our brain, how we perceive things, how we interact, and how the brain, the unconscious brain, we're not talking about the conscious, we have the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. The conscious mind is taking on information, analyzing it, and with logic, providing a path to an action. Unconscious mind, the brain, is designed to keep us safe. That's when my interest started, and I just studied brain and how it functions, and it's really not easy for an architect, for me especially, to remember the names, but luckily they had pictures. So to understand it, it's a way to rewire your brain. To understand that there is one more layer that we can add into our design process to make it more complete, to hopefully create new brain cells.
All right. So the concept is, the objective is to have architectural designs that help the brain create new cells.
Yes.
And would that also reflect on the quality of living within that architecture space?
Yes. Whether it's a living space or workspace, a lot of people will, ever since the pandemic, the platform has changed, and people probably don't spend as much time in their actual offices. They work from home and they have virtual offices. So that can be brought into a living area, wherever people are spending most of their time. Children are great examples of providing a space for children. And we've done a lot of studies in where it comes to sustainability and the learning capacity for children is creating spaces that are dynamic. And the basis of this area is to do the same thing for the living and the working conditions for the spaces. I'll give you one example of how the brain and understanding the brain can help with architecture, with designing a space. There is an area in the back of our head, in the brain, it's called amygdala. Amygdala's job is to notice danger and create fear. So just taking that one simple information, we can be conscious of designing walls and edges that are pointed towards people as they walk in, because we know if there's something sharp coming towards you, whether you realize it or not, your unconscious brain your amygdala realizes that that is a point of danger and they stay away from it. So that's just one little example of how our brain responds to a space. But it goes beyond that. There's a lot more with all the senses, with our sense of touch, with olfactory, with sight, with hearing. All of those are different layers that we can add to our design process.
And does that also impact, I keep going back to that point, but that also impacts how much new cells the brain is producing or creating? And the more new cells it creates, the more comfortable it would be and feel around the surroundings.
Will we be more comfortable with new brain cells? I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that, but I can tell you that it affects the aging process. It affects our memory, the hippocampus, the fact that we are regenerating brain cells means that our mind is sharper. If you think of the brain as a muscle, it's getting exercise. If you exercise your muscle, it becomes stronger. So your brain cells, if they get exercise, if we have puzzles now, we sit around and do that, but physical movement also helps with exercising the brain and keeping the brain cells that we have stronger, healthier, and also creating new brain cells. So will we be more comfortable if we know more? I can't answer that, but I can tell you that our memory is affected and we have better memory. I know myself, I have a better memory now than I did 10, 15 years ago.
Fariba, is that something we can apply in our day-to-day at-home living spaces, or no, Absolutely. It has to do with the foundational architecture of the whole building that we're in?
Well, ideally, you want to start from the foundation. If you say, I go to this office every day and this is how the office is, and I can close my eyes and move around this office without any problems and hitting anything, that means that is a safe place for you, correct? That your brain doesn't require a whole lot to be in that space. Now, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you go into the office and the whole furniture is moved around and you see a new office. Well, your brain needs to get used to the new space. So what you're doing is you're exercising your brain. You can even apply that to your driving route to work. If you take the same route to work every day, it becomes automatic. If you change it, then your brain is in manual. Then you have to think, you have to look, you have to listen, you have to make judgment. One of the studies that was really interesting, and this was done in the 70s, they took a group of seniors that were in a senior home, and the normal structure was a double-loaded corridor, which is a corridor with identical rooms on each side. And they monitored all the vitals, and they did a few studies of the memory in the beginning as a baseline. And they took the same people, the same seniors, and put them in a building where the proportions of the corridor and the sizes of the rooms varied. So nothing was the same as the other. The height of the ceiling changed. The spaces got narrower and wider. And after living there for 6 months, they checked their vitals and memory, and they had all improved. Why?
Improved with the bigger spaces, wider rooms, or with what?
With the varied
With the
spaces,
variance.
as opposed to the constant, because their brain was exercising. They were measuring their distance from where we are. We measure our brain measures our distance from where we are to any object around us. So it's exercising.
So how do you practice this at home? I mean, I don't expect people to keep moving things around within their home, right?
Well, you could move things around. You absolutely could. But one of the things that I've done in the past, that was part of, kind of figuring out how my senses can help my brain, just, because I believe that we can live well into our 90s and our mind can be sharp as a tack. And I know that because my late father was almost 98 when he passed, and he went to work every day. He was an engineer. He worked for the city of LA, and until the pandemic, he went to work every day, and his mind was sharp as a tack. So I know that is doable. And one of the things that I tell people is try taking a shower with your eyes closed, as long as you feel safe. Go through your house with your eyes closed. Try and see if you can do simple tasks safely with your eyes closed, and then pay attention how your body responds to that. The more awareness we have about our body, our brain, and our senses, the better off we are in prolonging the well-being of the cells.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So when you close your eyes and you try to move around in spaces that you're familiar with, you're engaging more cells, and you're instigating the brain to create more of these fresh cells in a way.
Exactly.
Perfect. How do you marry these concepts to when you're designing, net new project? You're on this project and you really want to start building the foundational layers of your design, incorporating the neuroscience layer there. How does the process work? Where do you start, and where does the neuroscience begin?
Well, the neuroscience doesn't begin or end anywhere. It's just part of the process now. It's and I'm actually working on a book that's going to come out in 2025 to give a simple answer. The simple answer to this is this.